Welcome back to Confident Leadership in Color. Last time, Hussein Hallak reminded us that leadership is an adventure, where every choice is a chance to test, play, and to grow. Today, we're stepping back to explore what happens when we lead with curiosity and joy. You find more about both me and Hussein in the show notes, and your engagement keeps this journey alive, fueling with curiosity and confidence for leaders everywhere. So if this episode sparks something for you, leave a comment, hit follow, or drop a quick rating. I'm so glad you're here. And now, let's jump right back into the conversation with Hussein. I'm Hanna Zaxmy, your leadership coach, and this podcast is your confidence boost in color. Let's go. I love how you in the book talk about defining what is your north and using the compass in that sense, and how you define it with like people you love to work with, vision you're after, and legacy you choose to leave behind. I love that, so to say, description of it.
The reason I developed that is we are asked all the time to make a ton of decisions. Life, as I said, if every moment presents you with not just one choice, present you with a multitude of choices. And I wanted to do a lot of stuff because life for me, I'm gonna take the word that you said, which is adventure. It was an adventure, and I was like, I want to go to all of the. It's like going into these amusement park, and I want to play all the games, and it was all the time. So how do you choose? How do you make a choice, and how do you make the decisions faster? Because decisions are different. Like if I want to go into a business, I need to see there are multiple things attached to it, and especially when you're working with others, like I can't sit with others, a team, and say, this is my choice and you live with it. Like that doesn't work. In leadership, you have to explain, you have to break it down. I like the number 3 a lot, not from numerology, but because it's easy for people to understand. Whenever you break things in 3, people like, oh, I get it. And they remember it. Whenever you say 10, by numbers 5 or 6, people forgot what number 1 is. With 3, the first thing is like, what are the decisions? What are the most important things that will outlast any circumstances that are going on at the same time? Because having done a lot of things, I realized that circumstances change, and in today's world they change even faster than at that time 2 decades ago or 20 years ago. I had to come up with a method or a framework. I love framework that allow me to have the flexibility that can apply in every thing, that use case that happens, and allows me to move faster than others. I came up with like, well, what is the first thing that is available everywhere? Or the people. It was a band, it was a podcast, it was a family, it was a gathering or a company. It's the people that will never change. Now they're trying to change it with AI. It will never change, because at the end of the day, we're people and we want to be surrounded by people. So, and I don't want to be surrounded by people I don't like. I've been around people I don't like. I just wanted to get out of the room by all means. Being a kid, my parents will take me places like, can I get out? I hate this. I didn't want that. And since I'm an adult and I can choose these things, so okay, I choose the people I work with. And then what is the second most important thing? Well, as an adventure, where are we going? I remember the Treasure Island. It was the people, like they liked each other at the very beginning, at least, but then it was where we're going and the vision of what that means to us. It's not just that we're going this direction. When we get there, this is how life is going to be. So there is something that people can buy into or step into, and that's the vision. And the last thing is, this is something that some of us maybe don't care about, or some of us pretend they don't care about, but we like to leave. I think I like to be around people who want to leave the world better than they found it. I think whether you have kids or not, whether you care about the world or not, and I don't mean a legacy like somebody talking about me, or that doesn't matter. Like if I have a museum in my name or nobody remembers me, it doesn't matter. What matters is that last moment, or any moment actually. If I look right now and say, what is my legacy? What did I leave people? And I wanted to leave the world better, because I want people to remember me kindly, because honestly, it's very rewarding when somebody comes and say thank you, and it's genuine. And I've had many people had that. In fact, I have taken them down. I have like a rack of cards, Hallmark cards like this, of people saying thank you for all kind of reason. It's one of the, for me personally, it's one of the things I love the most. When my daughter comes and thanks me for helping her or something, it means the world to me. So these are the things that matter to me. And I don't enforce them on anyone. I tell others, you need to have things that matter to you, and those should be present in any decisions you make. And once I started to adhere to that framework, partnerships, life decisions, everything became so much easier, so much simpler. We put so much into those decisions. The world is going to be different. Yeah, some decisions are important, but and there is, but at the end of the day, the next moment the world might change, and all of the other things that you base the decision on will be different. So what are the things that are immovable? So of course, for every decision or choice, you need to consider other things depending on what it is and what situation. But what are the things that will never change? For me, love of people will never change. Going after a vision that is bigger, that is more exciting, will never change. And wanting to leave a legacy will never change. So these are the things that are immovable for me. So they are the first thing I decide. And then I work out all of the other details.
It's really a good way, because I think it's depending on what different situations you come in. There is also different angles to it. And then it's easier to say, then I take this angle for this and that angle for that sometimes. When I read your book, the first reflection I wrote down after I had been reading it, I thought that both the title and, of course, the pictures inside, they were rather dark sometimes. I like colors, you know. But the thing was that the content inside, it really sparked that curiosity and joy of life, even whatever was thrown on you in some way and the hardship you met in that sense. I'm curious about, like, what is that makes you focus on joy in one way, or it makes you spark of joy?
That's a great question. Well, first, the artworks, there is a color version of the artworks. I'm wearing one of these t-shirts.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna release a version of the book that has color, but it would make it very expensive. So and we will actually allow people to access print and color. So we're working on that because I love them. I love colors like you. I would say, in regards to joy and why would you how would you find, I would say, joy, and why would you choose joy? I think I was very clear that in my life that I wanted to have fun. I wanted to play all the time. I was worked really hard. My mother was a teacher. She wouldn't accept me being less than perfect. So I'm used to perfection all my life. Like she would iron all my clothes. They had to look a certain way because our family, my grandfather used to be someone who's very important. He was very rich. We didn't take any of that money, which I always ask my father, why? God bless his soul. But my mom needed me to look a certain way and needed my marks to be a certain way. So I've always was like either the top of my class or I would have to deal with my mom's wrath after. So I had all of this. And so I worked really hard. So the moments I had for me, I wanted to enjoy and I wanted to create a lot of these imaginations. So I would use all of my toys, whatever my uncle would send me. He would send me Lego, and I would build and I would create all these stories. And for me, life, I knew that you have to work hard to get things done. For my guitar, I have to work hard. So once I get a certain level of mastery, I want to have fun. I'm not gonna work on the guitar just for me to play a few songs on my own. No, I want the maximum fun I can get. So because anything I touched, I put the maximum amount of energy into it, or I don't do it. I want the maximum amount of fun out of it. I would, for a guitar, I would want to be in a band, not just one band. I would be in any band. So I played in a wedding band, the top wedding band in Syria. I played anybody who said, let's form a band. Yes, I would be like in 3-4 bands in one go. And not only I would play, because I wanted the sound to be great, I would manage and I would interfere in everything to make sure it's perfect. If I wanted to work in a business, I want the brand to look awesome. So I'd spend night and day and if I'm not happy with it, I will not shy away. It was like, no, it's not ready. We have to make it look great. The things I have around me, like everything became this thing where I want the max out of it. And it brings me so much joy because it is an adventure. It is a discovery for me as a kid. What would it be like to get something like this done? Because I was always fascinated with these stories, and in the stories, things are not normal. You never see a story that is about a normal person with a normal life, right? Because it would be boring. Probably there are some stories like that, but I get bored really quickly. So all the stories like superheroes, colors, and stuff like that. So for me, that's what I sought in my life, because that's what joy is: colors, having things around, doing things. That's why the book, I spent 4 years, even though I wrote it in a year's time or a year and a half. Even a year ago, we were ready, and the artworks here, when we open like one of them, like let's say this one, and the artworks were not the right size, so there was like a little bit more space here, a little bit more space here. If I was to delay it, that means I have to pay extra for the designer to redesign the book, and I have to wait for the artist, because it's all done by Antonio Piedade, who's a Portuguese artist, brilliant friend. So he has to recreate them again, and I have to wait. I was like, screw it, I'll wait. It has to be like that, because otherwise I'll look at that space and it will always remind me, if you see a painted wall all black and there's a white dot, you can't see the whole black and you see only that white dot. That's, at least for me as a creative and a creative director, that's what I will see. So I was like, it has to be perfect. It has to be the way I want it. Every word has to be measured. That is what brings me joy. I don't care what other people do with their book. This is my book, and it's going to be my way. That is my view of. There is a little, I think, part of being obsessive and wanting things my way, and in other things, I'm easy. I'm not that difficult. Hopefully, you don't get to ask my colleagues and my partners. But I think when you see something, like when I look at my book and I see a product I made, and I realize that I didn't hold back, I've delivered. Now, any feedback is feedback that is worth for me, because I did my best. And the way I manage myself so that not every project becomes, an endless streak of revisions. The book still needs, like, if I want it to be perfect, I will wait until a workbook, I will wait until the color, all of those. But there is what I say, I time box it, and I say, here's what I want, and here's the time box when I'll put my all into it. And when that ends, maybe sometimes I'll fudge a little bit, add a month, whatever. But at least I don't let it go on for endlessly, because it still needs to be out there. So that's kind of the balance between shipping something and put it in the hands of people. Like these t-shirts, for example, we want a different thing, but at least I got them printed, we saw them. So I put a milestone and say, what do I want from this? Let me achieve that. But I always do my very best and put my all into it. And that brings me joy, that I never held back. And I think that is joy. A good thing to look at it, or a good metaphor, it's an exercise. If you exercise the same every day, it becomes boring. But when you push yourself, that extra, that is, even though it's painful, that's where joy happens. Like there's a joy of accomplishment, the joy of discovery, the joy of breaking through a limit, joy of understanding what it takes to be in that place where you never been before. At least that's it for me. And I would argue that for the human soul, I've seen across hundreds of people, kind of always the case, even though it's different for everyone.
Really interesting in that sense. And I think it's being in that mode, always trying to develop or improve in that sense in some way, that also creates that curiosity in that sense, and see what is the possibilities around here in that sense. I saw a quote today in one of my books from Peter Sench. When I read it, I felt like, oh, this is actually your book he's telling you about. He says in this way, master is the capacity not only to produce results, it's someone that can create great work only with constant struggle. We wouldn't call him or her masterful. In mastery, there is a sense of effortless and joyousness. It seems from the willingness to understand and work with forces around you. I think it's what you talk about in your book, that take what you get and make something beautiful of it.
Yeah, that's I think that's a great quote. It goes along with my chapter, Master, and the sea owes you nothing. Because I think one of the biggest challenges that we have as human beings is we don't understand who we are. We survived, and we are like a super, let's say, creature or a species, because we worked with the forces around us. For years, we worked with the forces around us. And if you look right now, when we work with the forces of nature, or when we understand gravity and work with it, we can achieve a lot. When we ignore it, we die. Like imagine somebody jumping off a building. It's like, oh, there's no gravity. Gravity doesn't care. And I think that is probably our biggest biggest challenge right now. We have hubris that's like, okay, we are these, we can do whatever we want, and we can destroy the planet as much as we want, and we can, you know, destroy relationships, and we'll be fine, and we will destroy other people and we'll be fine. And we don't think that will come back to hunt us or to kind of change who we are, and kind of take all the joy out of life. Joy in life comes from working with the nature, with the forces around you. Sometimes it's human forces. You are in a group. A great leader will surrender to the forces in the group to understand them first. A bad leader will come in and enforce and say, this is what I want, and I'm stronger, and you're going to listen to me. And what that does, it creates a break, and you basically break the relationships, and nobody wants to work with you. They have to, because you're coming from a position and you're holding, let's say, their salary over them or whatever power you have over them. That's an imbalance of power. When true power comes, where, like navigating the sea, you understand that the sea has its forces. You don't crush your ship against a wave that you can't, you move with the wave. That's why when you see people navigating, that's why it's called navigating. It doesn't mean like, you know, you press a button, you just go. You need navigation. That's why AI fails, because AI can't navigate, because AI can't understand the forces of the world. They can't understand the forces of relationship. We're still understanding, and we're going to remain understanding what human beings are, not because we don't know what human beings are, not because we're not advanced, but because human beings are always changing. Who we are today as a species are very different than decades ago, because we are so much more interconnected, and we're growing together as kind of this weird organism that, you know, and something changes and we change with it. So these forces sometimes are felt. Sometimes we need all of us. Sometimes you be in a room and you have to, as they say, read the room without somebody talking. You sense something, and that's extremely hard. And that sensitivity you have to develop, and you have to choice to, you choose, you come into a room, you can choose to start speaking, or you can choose to listen in for a little bit, like, what's going on here? Or you can choose to ask a question. Sometimes it's as simple as that. And I think that navigation is the mastery, where you realize the forces and you're attuned to the forces. And sometimes you make mistakes, like you try and you're like, oh, this is not working, and you step back. So that's why I call it the integrity dance, or some people call it the leadership dance, where you step in. Sometimes you're in integrity where things work and everything, and sometimes you step out and you break the integrity. Let's say you say something out of place, and then what you do is you come back, like the yin and yang. It's like, oh, okay, let me come back, and you can restore it. But some people have so much pride, so much hubris that, no, I'm not wrong. The other people are wrong. They're so afraid of admitting that they're just like everybody else, and they're so beholden to their own vision of power that they never really truly realize what true power is. True power is working with power, is understanding that that you have an order in life, that there are things that are stronger than you, things that you rely on, that your power comes from the interdependence and the integrated living that you have with others. And the more integrated and the more in harmony you work, the more powerful you become, because everything flows through you. And I think that's why a lot of people don't have mastery. And that's why I wrote the book. Life mastery comes from that combination of thinking, feeling, being, coming together into an integrated being, where you kind of try things and try again and try again. And as you learn and you grow and you work with the forces in your life. And that is true mastery. Thanks for opening that. That's a great question and a great quote.
I always think about that when meeting people and working with people, leading people. The best thing I can always have in mind is to say, thank you, I need help, and I'm sorry. If I can use those three phrases many times in different situations, at that point, I can be my best self in some way and learn continuously, because we learn here. We do mistakes and everything, but if you are able to say, I'm sorry, help me to learn, or something like that, then you grow together with those you lead as well.
It's such an important thing. I don't know what happened to us in the past. Maybe it was, you know, a child that got somebody screamed at them so hard and they didn't want to feel it while they were old, or there are some unresolved issues. But these are like the simplest things. And if we only learn how to be a little bit kinder with each other, and actually, I would take that back. I think in general, people are. But I think one of the things that we have yet to develop is to choose to put a stop, or I would say bad leadership. I think our biggest problem right now, because people in their life, if you look at all kind of polls where people are, unless they're corrupted by a leader or corrupted by a certain form of leadership, most people kind of rely, we have it kind of now, I think, in our DNA. There are certain principles that we work with environment, we work with power, we work with each other. leave people alone, and usually you will find a balance. And we're more collaborative than we like to think. We're more independent. We're more mature, and we understand those dynamics by nature. I think that's how we evolve. But then comes a leader that convinces us something else, or a form of leadership that convinces us, let's say, this group is better than that group, this group deserves what that group has, and so on and so forth, and different dynamics. And that creates a crisis because of the leader we allow. So I think the next frontier for us is the ability, if a leader comes in, to understand that a leadership, first of all, is something personal, that you have leadership, and everybody can and should be a leader, and leadership breeds leadership. And when they're a so-called leader, because that's not leadership, that steps in and try to kind of take a community or a group or a company hostage for their ends, that the group has the right and the ability and they work together to kick that leader out. I think until then we will remain having crisis. Just because somebody was voted in doesn't mean they should stay there. If they screw things up the first few months, they either correct course or they're out. We need to become better at this. If they're leading a company and they're not doing a great job in leadership, if they're leading a band and they're not doing a great job, they're removed out of leadership. Nothing wrong there. You're just not good at this. You need time. You either evolve, we'll work with you, or we need somebody else, because we are working for the better of everyone. And that's, I think, very, very important that we realize that that's how things work. It's not because I say so. That's how things work. A good leader creates great space for everyone and creates other leaders, and everyone thrives. Bad leader makes it horrible for everyone, even themselves. I mean, I've yet to see a bad leader having a good time. Yet to see.
We will start closing down this conversation for today, but I think it's rather good ending in that sense, because we will not master this by just one thing or so, but maybe we should add that into the listeners, actually, to have that as a challenge or so going into the next day here. Do one thing that stands up for leadership. Just saying maybe thank you, or I'm sorry, or I need help. Maybe that is the way you need to go into the new day with, and see if you can change one action at a day, so to say, for a better world.
100%. I completely agree. I think I would offer people 6 actions. They can take any of them. One is collaborate with someone. True collaboration requires that you understand, that you appreciate, that you communicate, that you go after a shared vision, having to share different things. So that develops you as a person. Finding independence with technology and the world around you. Integrate your personal, professional, friendship. Make sure they're integrated together, not they're siloed. I don't think we can afford that. Create safety for yourself and the people around you. Use story in a good way. Understand your story, other people's stories, and use stories to create new reality. Finally, I would say that master your responses to life. If life forces something, you just remember that you can't control anything around, but you can control your response, and that is the moment of choice. So if you do it by choice, you'll have an infinitely better chance at a better life. Can't promise you better life, nobody can, but you will have infinitely better chances of doing that. Thank you very much, Hanna, for having me. This was a beautiful conversation. And back.
Thank you so much. We will see what will happen next time. I have not decided yet, so but enjoy your day, Hussein, since it's early morning, if I understand it correctly, where you are. I'm going into the evening here, so I will celebrate actually a day has passed.
I'll start my day with celebration. This is a great way to start the day. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the wonderful questions and the space to talk about such important things.
Perfect. See you.
Inside of you.